Alright guys, so what we are going to be doing now is we're going to do a little bit of a crash course in why this works. And by this, I mean why we can convert something like, let's say, 3x plus 4y equals, equals 16. So, as I'm going through this, I want to keep one thing very, very clear, which is this point. Let me rewrite this, labeling what we're solving for. So let's say this says solve for, let's switch it up. Let's say solve for x, just so you don't always get used to solving for y. I'm going to rewrite this entire equation so that you can see what we're really dealing with here. In this case, I'm going to say 3x plus 4y equals 16. And the reason I wanted to do these different colors is this. In red, we have our variable, and in blue, we're going to say that is our coefficient. And we know that it's the coefficient because it is the multiplier of our variable. Now, 4y, positive 4y, and 16, we don't actually care about those. Those, in this case, are our constants. Because we are not solving for them. The constants are not what we are solving for. These are not what we're solving for. So, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to, again, remind myself, what am I doing here? I am solving for x. So, let's go back in and say, great. My first step, as we've always learned, step 1 is always distribute. Well, check. We're done. I have no distribution to do on either side. Fantastic. So, just so you see what we're still doing, plus 4y equals 16, because I want to make this as clear as humanly possible. Good, and then step 2 is going to be combining any like terms. 4y equals 16. 2, we combine our like terms, just like we have new notes. Like terms. And in this case, well, great, we're done. We don't have to do any of that either. Step 3, as you'll remember, is to, well, let's use a better term than isolate in this case, is to move all variables to one side of the equation. Now, this is, I think, where we're getting confused a little bit, as people are saying, yeah, but, mister, y is still over here. Technically, that's true. Y is a variable in this case. But if we revisit what we are doing here, we are solving for x. So the only variable I'm talking about in this step, the only variable here, is the one that we're actually solving for. We don't care about y in this case. Y, as we've already defined, is a constant for all intents and purposes in this case. Now, step 4, as you'll recall, well, actually, let me keep myself honest to what I said I was going to do here. And step 4, if you'll recall, step 4 was for us to move all constants away from the variable. So I need to move all constants away from the variable. So in this case, I'm going to say, okay, great, minus 4y from this side, and as we've already learned, whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other, and I move that. So this leaves me now with something that's a little more workable. We have 3, which, as we've defined in blue, is our coefficient, x. X is what we're solving for. It is the variable we are solving for, hence why it is in red. 3x equals, well, positive 4y minus 4y. Those terms cancel out, and I'm left with 16 minus 4y. 16 minus 4y. Now, step 5, if you'll recall, is to divide by the coefficient. And in this case, I know my coefficient because I've labeled it correctly in my blue is 3. So I'm going to divide by 3. Now remember, what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side, and I have to do to the entire side. I cannot just pick and choose which I'm going to do this for. So I'm going to write this in 2 different ways that I think has also led to a bit of confusion. 100% my fault. Watch. I end up with 16 minus 4y divided by 3. Now, I go through and I ask myself, well, does 16 divide evenly by 3? No, it does not. So I can leave this like this unsimplified for this particular exercise. And I say minus 4y divided by 3. Well, 4 does not divide evenly by 3 either. This is an okay answer. It's technically true. However, what I want you getting used to is separating these 2 terms from one another. This will make your life much, much easier as we get into slope-intercept form and things along those lines. So what I want you to see this answer as actually is x equals 16 thirds minus 4 thirds y. Here's why we can do that. 4 thirds, or negative 4y divided by 3 is the same as negative 4 over 3 times y over 1. Because y over 1, I can just have that right there. Which means that I can actually make that much simpler by saying 4 thirds y. I know that that is somewhat confusing at this particular point in time, but this is how you should get used to writing this. A lot of circles and ovals going on the screen. Just to make your life easier when we get to Unit 3. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful. Now I'm going to show you how to do this without the numbers. So we are going to scroll down. Actually, let's just scroll over so you can see how these steps remain exactly the same. Now let's say, in this case, we want to simplify ax plus by equals c. And let's say we still want to solve for x. So we still want to solve for x. As I rewrite this, I'm going to say, okay, great. Plus by equals c. Those are all my constants. My coefficient is a, and my variable is x, for exactly the same reasons they were over here. Zoom out a little bit so you can keep that in view. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the exact same steps. Hopefully you can see the steps 1, 2, and 3 are going to remain exactly the same. Let's get to step before where we are moving all the variables. So let me start by writing x a plus b y equals c. Just as I did over here, I'm isolating my variable, so I'm going to move the by, which, again, for all intents and purposes in this case are constants. Those terms cancel out, which leaves me with a x equals c minus by. Now from here, I'm going to, as previously done, divide for step 5 by my coefficient, which in this case is a, divide by a. And again, there are several ways I can represent this. Way number 1, which is perfectly fine for now, but I strongly encourage you to break, is c minus by over a. That's one good answer. A better answer would be x equals c over a minus b over a times y. And if you have any questions on how this becomes this, please let me know.